Fernando Mendoza, a kid nobody recruited, a kid who almost went to Yale to play Ivy League ball, is 3 days from being called the first overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft by the Las Vegas Raiders. And the way he's handled every step of this process has left Raiders owner Mark Davis scrambling to explain himself in front of the entire league. So let's break down how a once overlooked Miami kid turned the Raiders' entire organization inside out. A year ago, not a single mock draft in the country had Fernando Mendoza's name anywhere near the first round. They said this was not the class we would see a quarterback go in the first round, let alone kick off the draft. He was a Cal transfer with a 9-10 record as a starter, and a resume that, on paper, had no business being in the same conversation as franchise quarterback prospects. But let's go further back. Fernando Gabriel Mendoza V was born on October 1st, 2003 in Boston, Massachusetts, and grew up in Miami, Florida. As a quarterback on the football team, he completed 133 of his 203 pass attempts for 1,396 yards and 16 touchdowns with 4 interceptions, while also adding 137 yards and a touchdown on the ground across 2 seasons. Decent numbers, nothing that screams future #1 pick. Mendoza was never expected to make it this far. He finished his prep career in Miami as an overlooked college prospect, who had already chosen Yale over the likes of FIU, Bryant, Lehigh, and Pennsylvania. That's the reality. Fernando Mendoza was a kid deciding between playing quarterback in the Ivy League and maybe walking on at a bigger school. Before Cal finally offered a scholarship, Mendoza even seemed willing to accept a walk-on spot with a more traditional football bowl subdivision power, such as his hometown Hurricanes or Alabama. He was willing to walk on, no scholarship, no guarantees, just hoping for a shot. Then at the last minute, everything changed. Fernando Mendoza started his college football career as a last-minute quarterback commit, when then Cal offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave gave him a last-minute scholarship offer, and he ended up flipping from Yale to California. Crucially, the University of California, Berkeley, was the only Power 5 school to extend a scholarship offer to Mendoza, and it came very late in the cycle after another quarterback decommitted. So let's get this straight. The only reason Fernando Mendoza ended up on a Power 5 campus was because another quarterback decided he didn't want to go to Cal. One domino falls, and the door opens for a kid from Christopher Columbus High. He walks onto Berkeley's campus, redshirts his first year, and starts the long, invisible grind. Mendoza redshirted during the 2022 season. He earned his first career start in Week 6 of the 2023 season against Oregon State. He completed 21 of 32 pass attempts for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception in a loss to the Beavers. Mendoza was named the team's starting quarterback heading forward. In 8 starts as a redshirt freshman, he completed 63% of his passes for 1,708 yards and 14 touchdowns, leading the Golden Bears to a 6-7 record. No bowl game excitement, no Heisman buzz. And while all of this was happening on the field, the coaching infrastructure around him was crumbling. The Bears were in the late stages of the Justin Wilcox era, which was marked by significant offensive upheaval. During Mendoza's 3 years at Cal, the Bears had 3 offensive coordinators, 3 different systems in 3 years. He never had stability. He never had consistency. He just had talent and a work ethic that wouldn't quit. And through all of that, this is the part that seems impossible. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in business administration from Berkeley's Haas School of Business in 2025, while playing Division I football, while being shuffled through offensive coordinators like playing cards, while nobody in the NFL was watching. Now, here's where the Raiders enter the picture, and here's where Mark Davis starts to sweat. On December 11th, 2024, Fernando Mendoza announced he would enter the NCAA transfer portal. On December 23rd, 2024, Mendoza announced his decision to transfer to Indiana University Bloomington to play for the Hoosiers. He played 2 full seasons as a starter at Cal with a combined record that would never land him on an NFL team's radar. He was headed to a school, Indiana, that had been a football afterthought for decades. What happened next defied every projection in college football. Mendoza transferred from Cal to Indiana before the 2025 college football season and led the Hoosiers to an undefeated season, 16-0, and the college football playoff national title. With 3,535 passing yards, 41 touchdown throws, 6 interceptions, 444 rushing yards, and 7 rushing TDs. He won the Heisman Trophy. His 90.3 QBR also ranked #1 in the nation. Just absorb that for a second. A quarterback who nobody wanted coming out of high school, who played for a losing Cal team, transferred to Indiana and immediately went 16-0, won the Heisman Trophy, and brought Indiana its first national championship in the history of the school. Mendoza was the biggest star in college football last season, a consensus first-team All-American, the FBS leader in passing touchdowns and passer rating, the Heisman Trophy winner, and national champion. He wasn't just the most efficient and productive quarterback in the sport. He led Indiana to wins over Oregon twice, Ohio State, Alabama, and Miami. That's Oregon twice, Ohio State, Alabama, Miami, not cupcakes. The heavyweights of college football knocked out one by one in the 2025 Big Ten Championship game against the #1 Ohio State Buckeyes. Mendoza threw for 222 yards and a touchdown, leading Indiana to a 13-10 victory and their first Big Ten title since 1967. He was named the game's MVP for his performance. Mendoza led Indiana to its first bowl game win since 1991, defeating the #9 Alabama Crimson Tide 38-3 in the 2026 Rose Bowl. He completed 14 of 16 passes for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. 14 of 16 against Alabama. Mendoza completed 17 of 20 passes for 177 yards and 5 touchdowns while defeating Oregon 56-22 in the 2026 Peach Bowl. 5 touchdowns on 17 completions. And then the crown jewel. In the 2026 College Football Playoff National Championship against the Miami Hurricanes, he completed 16 passes for 186 yards while also rushing for a 12-yard touchdown, leading the Hoosiers to a 27-21 victory and the school's first ever national title. For his performance, Mendoza received the Offensive Player of the Game award. The national championship game in Miami Gardens, where Mendoza grew up, against the Miami Hurricanes. The same program that never bothered to offer him a scholarship out of high school. He went back to his hometown and beat them on the biggest stage college football has to offer. In that victory, the Las Vegas Raiders had majority owner Mark Davis, minority owner Tom Brady, and GM John Spytek on Indiana's sideline for the Hoosiers' 27-21 win over Miami in the national title game. Mark Davis was there. He saw it with his own eyes. He watched the kid nobody wanted beat the team from his own backyard. And from that moment, the power dynamic between the Raiders owner and this 22-year-old quarterback shifted in a way no one could have anticipated. To understand how Fernando Mendoza ended up with this much leverage over one of the NFL's most storied franchises, you have to understand where the Las Vegas Raiders have been. Las Vegas went 3-14 in 2025 and clinched the #1 overall pick, with a loss to the New York Giants in Week 17. 3 wins, 14 losses. That's not a rough season, that's a catastrophe. The results from last season's 3-14 finish: the offense ranked last in points, yards, rushing average, touchdowns, and first downs, and allowed the most sacks in the league. Last in virtually every offensive category that matters. Rock bottom. The coaching carousel had already been spinning for years. After Pete Carroll was hired to be the team's coach ahead of the season, the Raiders traded for former Seattle Seahawks QB Geno Smith, with the hope that Smith could replicate what he had done over the past 3 seasons with the Seahawks. Carroll was fired after the season, and Smith's future with the franchise is especially unclear. A desperate hire, a failed trade, a fired coach, all in 1 year. Meanwhile, the franchise's drafting history haunts every decision they make. Raiders owner Mark Davis knows better than to expect his team's top selection to be a sure thing. He was working underneath his father, the late Al Davis, in 2007, when the Raiders spent the #1 choice on LSU quarterback Jamarcus Russell and had a front-row seat for the disaster that became Russell's career. Jamarcus Russell, the specter that hangs over every single Raiders draft pick. The last time this franchise held the #1 overall selection, they drafted one of the biggest busts in NFL history. And Mark Davis was right there when it happened, watching his father make a decision that would set the franchise back by years. It is no wonder then that the Las Vegas Raiders have struggled so consistently in the 2 decades since their last playoff win. At times, it feels like the silver and black are allergic to landing studs or even value in April. The draft failures go beyond Russell blame. Horrible drafting for the poor product on the field. From 2019-21, the Raiders had 6 first-round choices. Out of those selections, they managed to select 1 Pro Bowler, running back Josh Jacobs, 6 first-round picks, 1 Pro Bowler. Under John Gruden's second tenure, if the coach didn't like a prospect, he would have an assistant compile a tape of a player's worst college snaps to convince his staff to pass on him in the draft. This is the organizational backdrop Fernando Mendoza walks into. A franchise that fires coaches annually, botches first-round picks routinely, and carries the baggage of Jamarcus Russell like an anchor around its neck. And yet, this franchise has no choice but to hand the keys to the kid from Christopher Columbus High. The Raiders really don't have a choice but to draft a quarterback with how the roster is structured now. And the fact they didn't make any moves for a young quarterback in free agency points to this being the selection. An AFC East area scout told ESPN's Matt Miller, "That's the word from around the league. They don't have a choice." And when the entire NFL knows you don't have a choice, the person you're forced to pick holds all the cards. This is where the humiliation deepens for Mark Davis and the Raiders brass. Because Fernando Mendoza hasn't just been the obvious pick. He's been running the show. It started at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis in late February. The verdict is all but in, the coronation, all but official. Fernando Mendoza's presence here in Indianapolis at the Combine is formality over function. It's late February. 2 months to go until the 2026 NFL Draft, but he has already done the fairy tale, done the unthinkable, done the proving. So what does Mendoza do at the Combine? Because he lapped the 2026 quarterbacks field, he has opted out of workouts. He didn't throw. He didn't run the 40. He didn't need to. He strolled through Indianapolis like a man who already knew the answer to every question being asked about him. Then came the Raiders' first formal meeting with Mendoza, and here's where it gets fascinating. Minutes after Mendoza, the presumptive #1 pick, walked into his first meeting with the Raiders' front office and coaches at the Combine in February. They put him on a FaceTime call with the team's limited partner owner, Tom Brady. Mendoza finally got to speak to the quarterback that he idolized, and they spoke for about 5 minutes, exchanging pleasantries. Mendoza then met with the team's staff for the next 30+ minutes and was asked to draw plays on a whiteboard. Think about the dynamics of that room for a second. The Raiders had to put Tom Brady on FaceTime to impress a 22-year-old. They brought out their biggest weapon, a 7-time Super Bowl champion as a minority owner, just to court this kid. The franchise with the worst record in football was selling itself to a college junior. Then comes Mendoza's Combine press conference. Mendoza gets asked about Tom Brady, former NFL great, current minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who are in turn owners of the first pick in this year's draft, and he's duly effusive. His response: to have, he says, stops, then tries again. To potentially have a mentor like that would be pretty impressive. Underscore, highlight, all caps that potentially he all but says out loud. Potentially in front of every camera, every reporter, every executive in that building, Fernando Mendoza made it a point to remind the entire NFL that nothing was settled. He wasn't going to hand the Raiders the satisfaction of certainty. He stressed that word potentially, in a way that everyone in the room picked up on immediately. Meanwhile, Mark Davis was doing the opposite, scrambling to manage expectations. At the NFL's annual league meeting, Davis said, "Having the first pick in the draft is exciting because we kind of control the draft. We get to make the decision on who we're going to pick. But we've had that position before, and it didn't work out. So there's no magic bullet there, but it's a great opportunity to get a great player, whoever they decide to pick." Read that again. The owner of the team that is universally expected to draft Fernando Mendoza publicly invoked the Jamarcus Russell disaster in front of other NFL owners, while trying to sound cautiously optimistic about a pick the entire football world already knew he was making. Well, if you're picking first, you're usually not a very good team, Davis told USA Today Sports. So, you've got a lot of holes to fill. There's the owner of your franchise, admitting publicly that his team isn't very good, while his presumptive franchise quarterback is out there stressing the word potentially, about whether he even wants to be there. And then Mendoza chose not to throw at the Combine at all. opting instead for Indiana's Pro Day on April 1st. Mendoza has chosen to wait until Indiana's April 1st Pro Day to throw, preferring to work with familiar receivers in a controlled setting. He threw on his terms, with his guys at his school. The Raiders and every other team had to come to him. In Bloomington, Indiana, that's not typical number one pick behavior. That's a man who understands the leverage equation perfectly. And then came the decision that sent shockwaves across the NFL media landscape. Fernando Mendoza, the projected number one pick in the NFL draft, has informed the league that he is not planning to attend the draft. Sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter, Mendoza wants to share the draft experience with his family in Miami. He's skipping the draft. The projected first overall selection is not going to Pittsburgh on April 23 to shake Roger Goodell's hand and hold up a Raiders jersey for the cameras. He's staying home with his family. It's not a usual occurrence that the potential number one overall pick isn't going to be in attendance at the NFL draft, but Fernando Mendoza isn't your usual prospect. Indiana's Heisman-winning quarterback won't be on the stage in Pittsburgh next Thursday night to shake hands with Commissioner Roger Goodell and hold up a Las Vegas Raiders jersey for the crowd and the chorus of cameras. Instead, he'll be spending the biggest moment of his life with his family. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, Mendoza explained his reasoning. I think the perfect NFL draft night for me is to be there with my entire family and extended family, because although I've gotten to this point, it takes a village, Mendoza said. The decision has deep personal roots. Mendoza is an advocate for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and his mother, Elsa, lives with multiple sclerosis. Elsa Mendoza is a central figure in Fernando's life and a powerful inspiration for his charitable work. She is recognized for her courageous battle against multiple sclerosis, a progressive autoimmune disease. The family often speaks about how her perseverance has shaped Fernando's resilient mindset and work ethic. His mother uses a wheelchair. She's been at every playoff game, every championship celebration, and Mendoza decided that the moment his NFL career officially begins would be shared with her and his extended family in Miami. On their terms, not on a stage in Pittsburgh built for TV cameras. Not everyone was understanding. WFAN's Craig Carton criticized Mendoza for the decision, saying he should go to Pittsburgh and that the NFL could accommodate his mother. But the backlash only amplified the story. The number one pick was actively choosing not to participate in the NFL's biggest spectacle, and there was nothing Mark Davis or the league could do about it. Now look at the full picture from Mark Davis's perspective. His team went 3-14. He fired another head coach. He's standing at NFL owners' meetings talking about how the last time they had the number one pick, it was Jamarcus Russell. His organization has been publicly called out for years of draft failures. He had to bring in a new GM, a new head coach, and sign Tyler Linderbaum to a record-breaking $81 million deal for a center, just to show the world they're serious about protecting whoever plays quarterback. It's no secret that Brady would prefer to give Mendoza time to develop, and that's why the Raiders made the move to sign Kirk Cousins. They signed a 37-year-old Kirk Cousins as a bridge quarterback to babysit the pick they haven't even officially made yet. And the kid they're doing all of this for, the kid who was almost a walk-on, the kid who almost went to Yale, he's sitting in Miami with his family, waiting for the phone to ring. Raiders GM John Spytek told reporters when asked about the team's plans at number one. A lot less energy spent on hypotheticals. We were just talking before we came down here. There's only one team that can get the exact person that they want. That's the general manager publicly admitting that they know exactly who they're picking, while the prospect himself refuses to be in the building when it happens. The NFL comparison scouts have landed on for Mendoza is Matt Ryan. Schefter reported, if there were an NFL comparison for Mendoza, it might be former Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan, who was the number 3 pick in the 2008 draft. Ryan measured 6'5". Mendoza measured 6'5". Ryan weighed 228 pounds. Mendoza weighs 236 pounds. Ryan's arm length is 32 inches. Mendoza's arm length is 31 inches. Ryan has 9.5-inch hands. Mendoza has 9.5-inch hands. But there are skeptics. The Las Vegas Raiders appear set to draft Mendoza and attempt to get out of the wilderness, but he doesn't appear to have the profile of a future All-Pro. He's a quarterback who might be the worst starter in the AFC West next year, even if everything in his initial development goes perfectly. One NFL scout even took a shot at his personality, saying he has talent, but a questionable ceiling. This might be the floor and the ceiling. I don't know if the goody two-shoes LinkedIn personality will fit into the diversity of an NFL locker room, the LinkedIn personality label, because this is a quarterback whose only active social media account is on LinkedIn. In a sport where every quarterback is expected to be the CEO of his offense, Mendoza is the rare signal caller who dreamed of a career in the corner office. He graduated from Cal's Haas School of Business and commuted to internships in commercial real estate between two-a-days during training camp. That's the man who has the Raiders organization bending over backwards. A kid who reads motivational books, posts on LinkedIn instead of Instagram, does real estate internships between football practices, and told his idol Tom Brady to potentially have a mentor like that would be pretty impressive. Emphasis on potentially, but here's why. Calling all of this a humiliation actually undersells the story. What Fernando Mendoza has done to the Raiders isn't born out of disrespect or malice. It's born out of a young man who from the very beginning was overlooked by everyone, and who now holds all the power precisely because he never needed anyone to validate him. He almost went to Yale. He earned his degree in 3 years. He won a Heisman and a national championship at a school that never had one. Mendoza is an advocate for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and his mother, Elsa, lives with multiple sclerosis. Mendoza, alongside his brother, has created multiple menu items at restaurants in the towns of the colleges in which they have played. The money raised has gone to multiple sclerosis research. He's not skipping the draft to spite anyone. He's skipping it because his family is more important to him than a photo opportunity. He's not stressing potentially to play games. He's doing it because he genuinely believes nothing in life is guaranteed until it is. He watched his mother fight a degenerative disease for years. He understands that nothing is promised, and that quiet, unshakable certainty in his own priorities is what makes this so devastating for a franchise that desperately needs him to care about them as much as they care about him. When their first meeting ended and Mendoza was leaving the room, he was visibly mad at himself and said loud enough for those around him to hear, "I messed that up." The Raiders reassured him he did great, but that moment reveals exactly who Fernando Mendoza is. He holds himself to a standard that has nothing to do with what team drafts him, and everything to do with who he demands of himself. Mark Davis is about to draft a kid he spent all offseason chasing. He restructured his entire roster, hired a new coaching staff, spent a record-breaking deal on a center, and signed a veteran quarterback, all to set the table for a 22-year-old who isn't even going to show up on draft night. If or when Mendoza is taken at number 1 overall, he'll be the third quarterback to win the national title and the Heisman in the same season, before being picked first in the NFL draft along with Cam Newton and Joe Burrow. The last 2 players in that company both made it to the Super Bowl. Mark Davis is hoping the third time's the charm for Mendoza and for his franchise, because the last time the Raiders had this pick, it was Jamarcus Russell, and everybody in the NFL remembers what happened next. 3 days from now, the Raiders will call Mendoza's name. He'll answer the phone in Miami, surrounded by the people who believed in him before anyone else did. And Mark Davis will be standing in the draft room in Pittsburgh, hoping the kid he just spent the entire offseason courting decides to call him back.